have chosen to test this station's destructive power on your home planet of Alderaan. Then name the system.
Wookiee religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blast. Like we're coming up on Alderaan.
You may fire when ready.
From the Alderaan Explosion Network's official countdown to Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. It's 35 days until release. My name's Dylan Blight, your Jedi Master, and joining me, my Padawans, Ciaran Marchant.
Hey, it's me, the Padawan. Well, we last week we proved you might be a Padawan in disguise.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Why?
Ashley had to correct you on something.
Oh, yeah, I was forgetting heaps of things. It's fine. It happens. Get over it. Also here, Ashley Help.
Hey Dylan, excited to be here to talk about Ewoks dying. I
was going to be happy because I thought you were just going to say Ewoks, but then you had the...
comma, dying.
Yeah, dying. It's like kind of messed that one up, but that's fine. So yeah, this week on the show we are talking about the last of the original trilogy, Return of the Jedi. So let's get into it. As always, Ash, when was the last time you watched this? How do you feel about it now compared to then?
I mean, again, it was probably 2 years ago when we did this show. It's fine. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I mean, it's good overall, but I don't know. It just didn't capture my interest this time. Whether it was just because we were doing Deadline or not, but I don't know. Yeah, it is good. Obviously, there's cool moments. The Endor stuff, the final battle with the Emperor. This is like the first time we see the Emperor like proper, like in person as well, which will probably be relevant coming with 9.
There's a lot relevant in this movie.
Yeah, there's a lot relevant,
the Death Star
potentially relevant, which makes sense because again, it's going to be echoed in 9. Probably it's going to be a remake of this kind of.
I don't think it's going to be a remake of this.
There'll
it's
be
just using
links, but yeah,
links because it's a sequel to a movie. So
and man, that song at the start of in Jabba's palace, bad.
It's so who sat down and was like, you know what? This enhances the viewing experience. Who did that? Because they're on some
I can tell you who
crap.
it was. It was George Lucas. There's no if, buts, or who about it. We know who it was.
Yeah, but somebody had to have been able to stop him, right?
No, that's literally the thing. Ciaran, when was the last time you watched this and how do you feel about it with this most recent rewatch?
I felt really good. Actually, I feel better. I think I enjoy this more with, having watched more Star Wars content and reading more Star Wars content, and even just the analysis of the trailer for Rise of Skywalker has made me more interested and more excited about this movie in itself. So I think retrospectively, this is like probably the best viewing I've ever had. I feel like I've seen Return of the Jedi fairly recently because for some reason it always seems to be the one that's on random like free-to-air TV whenever like they're doing some random Star Wars showing or whatever. So
really, it's always a New Hope that I always see on.
Oh, really? I always see Return, and it's just there, and I'm like, okay. I think the only thing I always think this movie's really long, even though it isn't. It feels really long. Like the first act feels so slow. And I don't...
The rescue?
Yeah, like the whole rescue at Jabba's palace just feels really slow.
It's always funny because it's like
that
all feels like its own sort of episode thing that's happening. And then they go to like, and now we've got to finish off these movies somehow, and we're going to get to the Emperor and all this sort of stuff, but they're like, fuck, before we get there, we have to rescue Han. So, like, they do the opening part, of course, yeah. Let's jump into my notes.
Don't you want to give your overall feelings about the film?
I was going to say, yeah, go for it. How do you feel? When was the last time you watched it?
I watched it I think I watched it like a year ago or something like that, probably. I feel good about it. I enjoy watching it every time. I don't want to spoil. I don't want to give away too much because then I'll spoil my placing. I feel.
Well, I think anybody who listens.
I think I remember you from last time, so I think I remember where this is going to get placed. But carry on.
No.
So go back and listen to that episode, and then you can listen to the rest of this episode.
Just
go spoil yourself. Go back there
if you want to. Yeah.
The heart of a hero. The courage of a rebel. The strength of a leader. The loyalty of comrades. The power of the Force.
So I started my notes with just by writing down the quote of, "I'm out of it for a little while and everyone gets delusions of grandeur," which is just it makes me laugh every single time because of just the delivery from Han when he's saying the line after he gets rescued. And it's like, Chewie's obviously like saying to him in Kashyyyk, he's just been like, yeah, Luke's going to come. He's a Jedi now. He'll save us all. And Han's like, Jedi? Delusions of grandeur.
I will say,
he's been out of it for a year.
Compared to your comments last week about Mr. Han Solo, I love.
He's
Han
good in this movie. I love Han in this movie.
He's fantastic.
He had a lot of time to think in that carbonite. So,
well, what? What?
I don't know if you can think
when
of
you have a disability for a little while, it changes your perspective on everything. Because he's like blind, isn't he? At the start of the film, you can't see anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Do you reckon they're going to
a lot better?
Do you reckon they're going to fix that process for the Mandalorian?
Well, they'll probably refined it. I don't know if they'll cover that as a factoid necessary for the viewing experience, but maybe. I enjoy Han a lot more in this movie. I find him funny. He's still the scoundrel or whatever that. To me, he's still the scoundrel in this. He just doesn't come across as big of an asshole. Which, as we discussed last week, it was like, oh, but being an asshole is part of being a scoundrel. But I'm like, yeah, but like, there's a line that I prefer him just to where I'm like, you're no fun anymore. And then this, I feel like he gets his smart ass remarks and like all this sort of stuff that comes with the scoundrelness. But at the same time, he's not being like super somewhat assholey / sleazy in this. Like, just kind of skip ahead. I think there's like a moment of growth that I really like for Han at the end where when Leia's out and Leia's just been told, Luke's like, you're my sister, I gotta go face Darth Vader, he's our father, all this stuff. And Leia, of course, is like in shock and all this stuff. And then Han comes out and then does his whole like sort of jealousy, spits it for a spec, and he's like, oh, but you'll tell Luke about it, would you? And he goes to turn away, and he's like, whatever then, like puts his hand up, but then he like stops in his tracks, and he literally like turns around, and he walks back up to Leia, and then he's like, I'm sorry. And then she turns around, like talks to him, and then they embrace and all that sort of stuff. So I always take that as like a moment of growth. Like that shows a big difference for Han. Like he's literally like, he does his usual, he's like, well, whatever, screw you, then goes to walk away. But then he's like, no, actually, I really like this girl. I'm going to turn back around and apologize and continue there. Whereas in Empire, it's all the like, as I was saying last week, the daughter, princess, you love that I'm a scoundrel, all this stuff. Like, apologizing doesn't seem natural to him, but yet he is. So I think that's as much as Harrison Ford always says that Han Solo got the least growth in the third film, which is true, out of the main three. Well, to be fair, the other two are dealing with family revelations and whatever else. I still think that you can tell he's grown somewhat, like as a person, especially when it comes with interacting with Leia.
Yeah, I can't remember if we discussed this before. Is everybody working in tandem, or did Leia infiltrate it like by herself?
I think they have no idea that Luke's going to do what Luke's doing. I think Luke
but he
is
sent
independent
C-3PO and
of
R2-D2.
everybody else.
But
What do you though? How? What? Wait, Luke sent R2-D2 and C-3PO?
Yep.
Really? I would have thought
R2-D2 shows a message of Luke.
Well, that's true. That's very true.
It's one big plan that they all put together, as far as I'm aware. I'm pretty sure that, and I mentioned last week how they're rebooting the Star Wars comic and it's going to take place between episodes 5 and 6 now. I feel like towards the end of that comic run, obviously, setting up the last storyline of that comic series would have to be like going over like setting up the plan and whatever else here, for sure. Even though they have briefly covered it in like a short story before, but it's like they send Lando to infiltrate first, then they send C-3PO and R2 to come in, and then if that fails, they send in Leia with Chewie, and then if that fails, it's like their trump card is leave Luke to last kind of thing, you know. It's one after another. If they manage to just send C-3PO in and then play the message and then scare Jabba out of just the idea of Luke coming, then it would have been like they would have been like happy with that. But they had like a structure. I feel they're like this and then this and then this.
Does anybody get the feeling that like when Leia walks in and gets caught, she's like very much, it almost feels like they were really waiting for a surprise party for somebody else. Like just the way they're hiding and everything is always like, this feels weird. Like, okay. It's like, there's just like that moment that's similar to a surprise party where the lights go up and, we're all here together. It's just, yeah, it doesn't come off as evil or sinister in any way. It just comes off as kind of like, ha, gotcha.
My headcanon for that has always been that Boba Fett is the one who was like, I don't trust that person. I don't know who they are. I think we should watch Han or something like that. Because I'm like, that's the only way I believe. Because he is there. And it is weird how they're all like cramped into a corner together, kind of. But got to hide somehow, I guess, in Jabba's palace. Next thing I wrote down, though, is Luke's entrance doesn't get boring. And that's because I always remember the first time watching this movie, it was like, Luke comes in, it's like, what a fucking badass. You know, like the last time we left him, this dude got his hand cut off. And then you watch this movie and it's like, Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, blah, 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 like in the crawl and whatever else. And then in comes Luke with the shadowy figure and then force chokes some dudes out and then...
There's still a level of uncertainty to him, though. Like, he doesn't have that pure confidence. Like, he doesn't have the... When you watch Obi-Wan in, say, Clone Wars, or even throughout the prequel movies, doing things, even when he's in a situation he did not plan to be in, he has this level of just playful confidence that is just about him and the way he deals with it. Whereas Luke, I feel like there are moments like getting dropped to the Rancor where I feel like Luke's still kind of like, holy fuck, what the fuck am I doing? Like, there's not... I don't know. It almost feels like the confidence is played up a little bit for Luke, not there being natural.
I think he's playing it up because he wants to act like the Jedi he thinks he is, and in reality, he's not really. But it also works for the audience, especially back when this originally released. I guess it's like, in he comes with the it just the way he walks, the way he talks. You know, it's like this is a different Luke than we have seen before. Talking about the Rancor, I wrote down, I love the crying Rancor trainer, because I always find it funny how they literally cut to a shot of this person crying, and you're so, it's like the Rancor's trainer is just like, lost my pet. Like, it's, I mean, every time I say, I'm like, what a weird thing to include in the movie.
I mean, it's realistic. Do you think the zookeepers when they shot her
it's
up,
realistic, I guess.
But I don't think the zookeepers are going to drop somebody into the lion pit and be like, fight my lions.
I love how it looks like a caveman person as well. They got no top on. Like, what are they doing to this Rancor? R2's smart-ass attitude is underappreciated a lot. And I wrote down the quote from C-3PO where he's like bumps into R2 and he's like, what are you doing here, R2? And then you just hear R2 go, beep, beep, and then C-3PO goes, yes, I can see you're serving drinks. I always find it fun. Like, you never hear what... Obviously, that's like how the jokes work. You never have it translated, but it's always so funny how you can just tell that whatever R2's saying is like the most smart ass. Like, I just picture R2 being like, I'm serving drinks. It's like such a fucking smart ass robot.
I always think whenever I watch Star Wars in any form, like whenever I watch a movie or even Clone Wars, whenever there's a part with R2, I'm always like, I really wish there was like a dubbed over version of this where they replace the beeps with somebody talking.
Yeah.
Like some like either like almost like even like a Deadpool style of like voice or something to it where he's just talking shit. Like there's so many times where characters are like R2 do something already, or like call back to like Revenge of the Sith where he's trying to fix everything and deal with super battle droids at the same time, and Obi-Wan's just like, R2, what the hell are you doing? I just feel like his responses there would be very quippy and very funny, and just overall, I think it'd be really fun to watch. But
Yeah,
at the
I
same
always
time-
picture
yeah.
in those moments where he's like, there's shooting happening everywhere and he's trying to get their files. It's like, hurry up, I just picture him being like, fucking coming, just shut the fuck up. I'm coming, just can you not see? Like,
Just give me a fucking second.
Just-
I'm
just give
dealing
me-
with a crisis
yeah.
here.
yeah, so chill out for a second, everyone. Jesus. Yeah, so I always find that funny. Next thing I had down is fucking hilarious how Boba Fett goes down. What a nub. Where are we at the return of Boba Fett thoughts these days? Because obviously I think every year it's like, well, there was the height of Boba Fett returning rumor was like Force Awakens type era where Josh Trank was supposedly going to do that Boba Fett movie. And then that got cancelled, obviously.
Wasn't James Mangold?
Oh, James Mangold. You're right.
Yeah.
Sorry. James Mangold was going to do that one. And then nothing happened with that. But they basically confirmed it.
Well, Solo
and
killed it.
Disappeared. Solo killed it, true.
Arguably.
And that's that. No, I think that is pretty factual. Solo did like not because it's a bad movie, but it just underperformed for Disney's expectations, and I think that obviously caused them to slow down on spin-off films, which is why Obi-Wan, which Ewan McGregor recently on some late night show admitted that it was a movie. They were making a movie years and years and years ago around the Force Awakens era time. Where they started like really going ham on putting a lot of these productions in the work. That's when they started originally having the talks about the Obi-Wan movie, and then that's why he's had to lie for so many years about it, because it's like he knew they were doing something, he just didn't know when it was actually going to happen, and he said years and years and years back that he agreed to do it, and then obviously because of Solo, they decided movies isn't probably the way to go for spin-off Star Wars material, at least for the foreseeable future at the moment, and that's why Obi-Wan they've taken that script and they're extending it into a series. So they could possibly, if they had written anything for a Boba Fett thing, which we don't know if they'd actually started writing anything, or even if they had like a story outline of what it was going to be, and we never had confirmation if it was supposed to actually be about him like surviving the Sarlacc pit or anything like that. But if they did have something that could extend it to a series, but how do we feel about it these days? Because every time I watch him go down, I'm like, fuck, he goes out like a loser. It is hilarious. Han literally just swings around like, what? like, and then kills him, basically. And off he flies.
I mean,
hits the
some
barge
of the best
and-
people just accidentally get killed. So
It's hilarious. But I'm not super against him surviving the Sarlacc pit, because it's like, the whole thing of the Sarlacc is it's something that's it's supposed to slowly, they mention it in the movie, it's like slowly digest you over X amount of years. And so it's not like even if he went into it, like if he dropped in, you're not going to die instantly. And they could do some weird storyline where he fixes his jetpack and he manages to like burst out like shortly after Luke and everyone leaves.
I mean, if
like,
he's got years, he's got plenty of time to.
yeah, so I don't think I'm not against him surviving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know George Lucas at one point said that in his mind he survived the Sarlacc pit, so yeah.
I desperately hope that he's not in The Mandalorian at some point. Because it'll be super tempting for them to do.
Well, Jon Favreau wanted that show to be about Boba Fett. That's apparently how he pitched it. He's like, I want to do a show about Boba Fett. And they said,
I mean, it
No.
could be about Boba Fett.
yeah, we still don't know the dude's name. But I would find it very weird if like Pedro Pascal's playing Boba Fett. And I also think having that character suddenly revealed as Boba Fett would ruin that character. Like it's like, here's a new character. The first live action Star Wars show is a spin-off starring a brand new character, all these brand new supporting characters, etc., 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 and then they reveal at the last seconds that it's actually Boba Fett being played by Pedro Pascal. Nah.
It would
And he's way too young.
It would also rip out any potential growth for that character in that moment, because if you name that character, say, as we speculated last week, if you open the door at the end of the series and his character name is given and, you know, that's how the series 1 ends, you then have season 2 to explore who he is as a character and his past and everything like that. As soon as you go, oh, I know it's you, Boba Fett, it's like, oh, we know you. We know everything already. Cool.
Then it's like the Mandalorian. Meh, is he though?
He's not really. I have a special place of just disdain for Boba Fett. And I think it's just because how I've consumed content for Star Wars that I just think he's really overrated. Like, everybody loves him, but he does fucking nothing. Even watching Clone Wars, where you see him as a kid, you're like, you're just a fucking snotty-nosed brat. Like, you are just annoying as shit. Like, he's just not a good character. Which is sad, because, you know, there is the elements of, you could have been a good character. You could have been interesting.
He doesn't have the opportunity to do anything interesting, so.
Exactly. Like, and there's a lot of, I think, in terms of general character development, apart from the select few, overall, the original Star Wars were fucking terrible at any kind of character development. Like, just from a pure writing standpoint, and I just think that shows, for the time, George Lucas's writing capabilities of a script and actually writing the story wasn't that great. Like, he
also was never he was swinging around and changing his mind about things constantly and never sticking down to like a certain story. Like at one point in time when he was originally planning his Star Wars movies as 3 separate trilogies, where he was going to do this one, he was going to do the prequels, and then he was going to do the sequel trilogy. When he was doing that, and then he changed his mind at some point and said, "No, I'll just stick to doing a prequel trilogy, and that's it. I don't want to do a sequel to this one." But when he was planning on doing 12 movies originally, apparently he was going to have Boba Fett actually be the lead villain of this, and he wasn't going to reveal the Emperor until episode 12.
That's how he was. Holy shit!
That's how he was originally.
Holy balls!
Yeah. So he also regrets. He's on record in interviews and whatever, also saying he regrets how Boba Fett dies in this because he never realized how popular the character would be. And he's like, if I knew it was going to be so popular, I would have made sure he had a lot more interesting death. Like, but he never knew. It is always funny. You gotta remember the character comes from the freaking Christmas holiday special, so where he's riding on whatever creature with the weapon that's making it show up in the Mandalorian. But this is a good point. I was looking for a point to put this in. I was like, I had this story last night as of recording now. Last night I had a dream. This was my legit dream.
Cool.
I can't remember it all because of, you know, like dreams and whatever else. But I dreamed an episode of The Mandalorian, basically, is what I can gather. And in my episode, Cad Bane teamed up with the Mandalorian.
Who played Cad Bane?
And also, the other funny thing about this dream, though, was it wasn't like I was just dreaming the episode like I was like inside the camera. I was like dreaming it where it was like I was in like a lounge room watching it, and I was talking to people. I don't know who was there, but there was people there. And then when Cad Bane showed up on the screen, I stood up and I like cheered, and everyone like looked at me. And then I just remember in the dream I went, "It's Cad Bane, motherfucker!" So I don't know if I have foresight, or for whatever reason, my brain last night was like,
I think you just got wishful thinking there, buddy. I think it was just
Cad Bane. The best bounty hunter in Star Wars is Mandalorian. I don't know what I was thinking about it because like the last thing I did before bed last night was I was reading a Star Wars book, but I was reading the new Resistance Reborn book, which doesn't have Cad Bane in it. But then I suddenly started dreaming about Cad Bane, so I don't know how that works. But anyway, funny little tidbit. My last note on this is I still think we'll see Boba Fett return because he still sells merchandise like hotcakes.
So much merchandise.
And as much as like the Mandalorian, they may be like it's sort of the same or whatever, but like for whatever reason, people really like.
He
Boba
doesn't
Fett.
have a
like,
jetpack.
Yeah, it's like the green armor that Boba Fett has.
He doesn't have a
It's
missile that fires like straight up.
We don't know.
Can I say out of all of the Mandalorian armor we have seen so far to date, Boba Fett's is the worst looking armor. like, I just hate it. I hate the color scheme for it. I'm like,
Well, I mean, my favorite is the Sabine from Rebels because she like spray paints hers, customizes it and shit like that.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. But in my opinion, but-
no, I think there's a lot of others. Like I even like the Darth Maul versions of the Mandalorian armor when Maul is ruling.
No, yeah, Death Watch or whatever.
The
is what
Death
he
Watch
takes over.
ones where he's got where they have like his colors. I think they look really cool. But yeah, just Boba Fett is just he goes out like the chump he was, and then to add insult to injury, he has like a little scream or whatever, and it's like, yeah, it's not good. Just
And off
it's
he
just,
falls.
oh boy.
Tumbles to his death. Next thing I wrote down is there's a lot to cover still between episodes 5 and 6, like Luke's training. He obviously doesn't return to Yoda till this movie, but whatever he goes through between the two films lets him grow in strength a lot. And then he makes a lightsaber, of course, which is a deleted scene you can see on the Blu-ray. But then that could be put into one of the upcoming comics as well. Because I think I was just thinking, like, when he returns to Dagobah and he's like talking to Yoda, I think I was paying a bit more close attention to that scene now with the recent announcement about like the comic being set between two movies, where I was like, what does he say? Like, could they try and twist it and have it so he returns to Yoda like in the comic? But then he's like saying it there and he's like asked obviously about if Vader's his father and then Yoda confirms it. It definitely feels like he's never gone back to Dagobah until this movie. Like, so then it does mean that in the comic when they're trying to explain what's happened in the year between, you really do have to make that Luke's strength and confidence and force powers and whatever, that is all just him slowly sort of teaching himself a la like Rey, I guess, like self-discovery.
I don't think he's self-taught.
You think he's going to bump into... Well, I guess Obi-Wan... You could say that Obi-Wan's helping him and
I
teaching
think
him on the way.
either
maybe.
Obi-Wan-
Yoda gave him some audio tapes.
Maybe.
Yeah, either, Obi-Wan, I think he could find another Jedi temple.
I think that's a given.
Yeah. That
and
could be... That's
through the
probably a
Jedi
thing,
temple, maybe it brings in the 3 people of the Force to kind of come in and train him, or you hook your boy Qui-Gon up, and he's like, "Yo, homie, let's get to the advanced shit. Let's sit back, relax, light up a few of these space sticks, and let me teach you how it's done."
I mean, it's possible. Yes. And he goes back to the deleted scene from the Yoda conversation. We've never seen this movie. Smoke death sticks with Qui-Gon, you did.
Look, Qui-Gon was the hippie of the Jedi Order, man. He knew where the good stuff was.
This is true. Next thing I wrote down is this movie has so many big reveals. Leia's your sister. Bam, next scene. Like, it's always weird to me how... And once again, I feel like this comes back to kind of how I felt about the start of Empire, where it's like, Obi-Wan shows up as a Force Ghost so early in that movie, which, as I was saying when that happened, I was like, this wouldn't happen like this these days. They'd save that as like a much bigger reveal. And in this movie, they do like the whole, like, how far are we in? Like, it's literally after 20 minutes, I guess, the whole Jabba Palace stuff. And then he pops back over to Dagobah, speaks to Yoda. Leia's your sister. Next scene, they literally just cut to another scene. Like, it's just one of those things where I feel like if this movie was made today, like that scene would be like drawn out, much more epic music, close-ups, like, like sunsets, like give the audience lots of time to like sink it in. Yeah.
It'd be like the Jon Snow parent reveal from Game of Thrones.
It'd just be a lot more epic, like the way it'd be edited and everything. But it's just like, Leia's your sister. Yeah, all right. Oh, next scene. Like, it really does not linger.
It would be edited in a way that Leia is also somehow finding out at the exact same moment.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Somehow.
That, or
She
they'll
sees
try
him.
and misdirect you at first. Like, someone you know is your sibling.
Yeah, drag
Is
it out.
Han?
Yeah. But there's another thing with the movie. They could have, like, these days, I feel like it would have been like, there's another. Yoda dies. Never gets to say who. Luke never realizes who it is. But in this movie, they're like, there's another. And Luke's like, it's Leia, isn't it? Everyone's like, yeah, good job. But like,
I knew as soon as I kissed her.
yeah, I knew. I knew as soon as the lips touched mine. What?
This is
Yeah,
the
so,
movie
it's just one
that
of
set
those-
up the incest thing that is perpetrated throughout entertainment.
So we wouldn't have Game of Thrones without Star Wars,
This
is what
kiss,
you're saying.
Yep.
Yeah, this kiss. This kiss. Next thing I wrote down, quote, many Bothans died to bring us this information. Battlefront 2's campaign covers a lot of the Endor setup, including how it was, of course, a trap. And that's the one thing, as much as I thought the Battlefront 2 campaign was kind of meh for the most part. Like I did enjoy how that the story in that game's campaign does sort of extrapolate on like the trap and everything here, where it's basically like the rebels intercept this information from the Bothans, sure, but then at the same time the Empire intercepts that they're intercepting that information, so they're aware of it, and instead of then like stopping the ship that's got that information or even chasing it, a la like episode 4, basically, they literally like let it go. And then literally the first mission in I can't remember how it plays out now exactly, but the first mission in Battlefront 2 is like you purposely sabotaging the attempt of the Empire, the rebels, like letting these people know or something along those lines. So it all plays out so that the Emperor lets it all happen, and then he hides his ship on the opposite side of the Endor moon, and blah 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 blah, all this sort of stuff, you know. So, but I always find it weird, like, and every time I hear the line, it also just always makes me think of Rogue One, because when Rogue One was coming out, everyone kept posting many Bothans died for this, and there was always every comment section, every trailer, you know, be like, oh, it's the movie about the Bothans, and everyone there was always someone replying like, it's not that one, it's the other one, the fucking second Death Star. What is wrong with you? So we can't have a Rogue. The people on the internet who are like, can we get Rogue One too? The answer is no.
Why would there be a Rogue One?
They
2?
already
Not
did
necessary.
Rogue 2.
It's
Rogue
called
2 is
New
in
Hope.
End of the Jedi. Empire Strikes Back. I mean.
End of the Jedi.
That's true.
End
the
of
end
the
of the
Jedi.
Jedi.
The end of
That
the
should have
Jedi.
been
That's
The
one I
alternate
haven't
name
heard
of
of.
this of The Last
Reworked
Jedi.
name, yeah.
I just think that whole thing about Rogue One 2 is terrible. Like, do they not watch the end of Rogue One and be like, oh, can't really do anything all here?
Oh, yeah. No. You think so, but next thing I wrote down is Ewoks are good. I won't hear otherwise. And that's why they should show up in Return of... Shut the hell up. That's why they should show up in Return Rise of Skywalker.
You were going to say Return of the Skywalker.
Yeah, well, Return of Skywalker. Return, Rise of Wings of Dread, whatever they're called. No, Ewoks are great. I won't hear otherwise.
Ewoks or Pogs?
Pogs. But
Yep,
Ewoks
so
are still
Ewoks
great.
will get massacred now.
No.
I liked, that shot of the Ewok dying after that explosion, like
Yeah, they all crash onto the ground, and the other one's
Yeah.
like, "Come on, mate!" Like goes to grab them, but they won't get up. I
Yeah.
do like that scene because it shows like it adds humanity to the Ewoks.
I like to
guess.
think that's the first time it's ever seen death. Like these are
I mean, possibly. You don't know how long they live.
These Ewoks don't age, and they never.
Well, they definitely age. They show a baby when they're at the village. They show a
They
baby.
show a
Well, I
baby,
guess to
and
an
the chief
extent.
seems really old.
Yeah, they could be like ancient beings, like Yoda-esque, live forever.
Possibly.
And that's the first time he's ever seen someone die.
Possibly. It's a
Traumatic.
sad scene.
Yeah,
He goes to grab it. He's like, "Come on, come on!"
why aren't you
But they
moving?
won't. They won't move.
And he's
'cause
like,
they're dead.
"Damn,
it's a
I need
real
to wait
war
here
scene.
until you wake up because
This is the thing. That
if
you change the
opportune time for you to fall asleep."
If you change the Ewoks to 2 like humans, all of a sudden that scene becomes like really fucked up. Like they go to grab their friend and like, oh no. Like it seems like it's a scene from a legit like Steven Spielberg war movie or something. But because it's 2 teddy bears, it's like people don't get the same feelings, I guess. Or whatever.
It's dialed back a little bit.
Yeah, because they're teddy bears. But also, I watching this again, I love how how good Carrie Fisher is acting with Wicket and stuff. Like, she's just like, you can tell that like Leia as a character is like, this thing's kind of adorable, but then she's like unsure of it at the same time. Whatever. Like the first time she meets Wicket, I really enjoy that scene. The first time she meets Wicket, I think it's good. Carrie's really good in this movie. I think as well. I think this is the best movie that she's in, acting wise.
Probably.
I think she's probably better in like original trilogy. I'd say. because then I'm like, oh, she's so good in
I
Last
think,
Jedi. and Force
well,
Awakens, but-
even in she doesn't get a lot to do in the last couple of movies.
she has a lot in The Last Jedi, though. I'd say Last Jedi is probably like her best performance in all of the Star Wars movies. I'd put this as second.
We'll get to it when we get to it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's skip ahead. Next thing I wrote down is Luke never goes to Vader to have some massive showdown and fight. He goes to turn himself in and save his father. His actions aren't offensive. He says his father will have to kill him after he says it's too late for him. And then just like to tie it back into this, to tie all this Luke stuff in together, when they actually get down to the fight, when he starts dueling Vader, Luke comes out swinging as he gets so close to the dark side for the first time. Rian Johnson recently confirmed a theory online that the shot of Luke thinking about striking down Ben in The Last Jedi was made to mirror Luke having a moment of clarity in this film as well. Luke has struggled with his dark side a lot, which is why that time against Ben sends him into hiding. He fears the dark side within him because it's the second time. What could be?
Isn't there
third
like
time.
you can just mirror the shot? Like you can just put the one shot into the other and they fit
Yeah.
into each other.
Yeah,
Someone-
they did like a merge
GIF.
or no, like a
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Twitter.
a dissolve.
At Heather Campbell tweeted it, but they got it from Reddit. Obviously, I don't know who did it on Reddit, but yeah, I never realized this either until I saw the shot. But it was like when you see the merge, it is like holy shit, that is literally the exact same shot. And then these people are having threads. This person at Andrew MW Folk or something said, The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars. And then someone replies and says, as much as I like the thought of it, it seems pretty far of a stretch. Low angles like those are textbook framing device to portray power as the viewer is placed under them. I'd believe it if Ryan said so, though. And then the person replies again, says, true, even if it's not intentional. I love that fans are looking into this stuff. And then they tag Ryan Johnson, and then Ryan Johnson actually replies and says, you're right that some of these parallels are just... it's a close-up of the same character, but this one was very intentional. It's why I had him look down at his mechanical hand holding the saber. So, I know we're not talking about The Last Jedi, but I felt it was better to tie it in here, basically, and I think it works so well. Like, because this is the two times that we know of in Star Wars where Luke has had these, like, very close to the edge of, like, dark side moments, and Rian Johnson literally just mirrors the exact same shot from Jedi, and it is perfect mirroring. Even Mark Hamill's face is the exact same basically with a beard. Obviously,
they'll lose the weight in his face, so his face will be the same size.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's really really good, and then it like buys into it. It's like Luke's mind here, when he's like nearly going to strike down his own father, and he's going ham. And that's the thing about this fight against Vader compared to his fight with him in Empire. Those two aren't really trying to kill them each other in that fight properly. I don't think that's the thing. Like Luke isn't like strong enough or believe in himself enough when he goes into that fight. Like he doesn't have the confidence, and he's basically on a defensive the entire time. Vader's obviously just kicking his ass, and I don't believe Vader's ever trying to kill him in that fight. And Luke says as much, obviously, in this movie. He's like, you didn't kill me because you wouldn't be able to, blah, 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 blah. But in the duel in this movie, whenever Luke's just coming out, he's like fucking, he is going to town like with the full force and kicking Vader's ass left, right, and center all over the place. Like,
I mean, he's wanting to disarm him, like pun intended.
Yeah, but like the way he fights is just aggressive. You know what I mean? Like he's
It's
throwing
Darth
with,
Vader.
Yeah, but he's not going to like. You can feel the anger in that fight. I feel just the way he's like, especially when he chops Vader's hand off. That one scene there, you can really just feel the aggressiveness of it because you have Luke like he's like whack, 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 and then eventually like cuts his hand off. It comes across very aggressive. It's like a like someone cutting into a tree.
Have you chopped a hand off before? They're very difficult.
I pressed L2 once in a game and it did it. So. I don't know. I think that counts for a lot. But yeah, it's like there's a moment there, and they have this shot of Luke realizing how close he is becoming so close to getting to the dark side. And then obviously in The Last Jedi, they do the exact same shot again to represent how he's feeling there. And I know we're not talking about The Last Jedi, but I really just think it adds a lot to Luke as a character. That he has these two defining moments where he got so close to the dark side, And I feel like when we get to Last Jedi, it's like kind of worth keeping in mind that the reason he puts himself in seclusion is because he's literally just afraid of himself, from literally what he nearly did to his own father in this movie, and then from what he nearly does to his own family in another movie. Like he's afraid of himself and what he knows is inside him, which is he knows that his father is inside him. Next thing I wrote down is I just wrote down, and there old Palps falls to his frozen abyss and a throne. Because of course, this time watching the movie, unlike the last time I watched it, you're watching him fall down that hole, and it's like, you know, there's not going to be any clues there. Like they haven't digitally gone back and changed the movie on my Blu-ray disc, but my brain, without even like being able to help it, is like watching that scene, like, you know, like it's looking for clues that aren't going to be there, kind of thing.
This is
you know
the
what I mean?
only thing throughout this whole podcast series I've said, you know, having all this other knowledge now, Clone Wars is so great, and having all the theories now we have. This is the only thing that has been possibly ruined by that knowledge, because I watch him fall, and I think, you know what? Something happened in The Last Jedi that could happen here. And then I get this image of Emperor Palpatine flying through space as he goes in his cloak, just like rippling behind him, flying away as he like falls out, you know, like if Leia could do it and she doesn't know how to use the Force, Palps is like Rocket Man. He's just Superman. He flies off, lands on a ship, and see you later. Takes him out of commission for a bit. And, you know,
I don't think that's it, because it does all explode as he goes down. So the
Force also protected him.
They kept him warm down in the cold.
Yeah, maybe. When I watch the scene this time, I literally, like, at the moment, until I get proven otherwise when the movie comes out, of course, is that I'm picturing him dying and then, like, his essence, or basically some fucking Voldemort shit, breaking out and going to hide in another body. You know what I mean?
Maybe
Like-
he's got a clone.
No, they can't do the clone shit, because that's what they did in the original books.
Well, I think we talked about Rey being a clone. So why couldn't Palpatine have a clone that he transfers his essence to?
Because they've done it before, and I feel like that's just like uphurling a bunch of rocks that they don't want to. You know, they try so hard to be like, we've got.
Oh, because
nukes, cannon.
they've never redone something they've done before. How
They've
many Death Stars did they make?
They've reused stuff, but I think redoing the whole Palpatine has a clone storyline would just be. Then at that point, people will start being like, why the fuck didn't you just make those books then? You know, because a lot of the Star Wars, I say quote unquote fanboys, even though I don't think they're fans because they just basically hate everything. But the people who hate the new movies and all that sort of stuff, and the new books and whatever else, the thing they're always on about is, why couldn't they just make like the Thrawn trilogy and all this shit? So the second you start doing stuff like having Palpatine be a clone, then you're literally giving those people ammo for their guns. You know?
Oh, so that he was a clone in the expanded the legacy.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That he was a clone in those books. That was like the first. That's literally what happens.
I was just making a joke. So
No, they literally. That is what happens in those books. Palpatine has a clone, and then they have to fight Palpatine again because he has a clone. It's very silly, but that's what happens, and that's why those stories are now called legacy. No longer canon.
There was also like Palpubots.
Yeah.
Robots of Palpatine.
just
Well,
bring it all back.
There are robot Palpatine things in canon that exist, but they're not like sentient. They're just like robots that have his hologram face on them. I don't know. Anyway,
Maybe it's a Palpatine from an alternate Earth or universe.
the other thing to take into account, because we're going to spend a lot of time just, of course, believing that Palpatine's actually back. I'm 99% there because, you know, it's in all the promotional material, the poster. They really want you to believe Palpatine's back. But all I'm saying is, I still am leaving a little bit of my brain ready for that rug to be pulled out from under me and them trick us completely and say he's not actually back.
Yeah, maybe
Like-
he just provided the voice for a droid. You know,
Or something.
he was
I
just
don't-
a real big fan of voice acting. He's like,
Can I ask, right? What's his face going to look? What do you think Palpatine's face is going to look like? Because his face in Revenge of the Sith is fucking terrible.
I think it'll just look exactly. It'll look just. It'll just be Palpatine face. They're not going to be like, oh, we'll make it more scarred and messed up. I feel like Palpatine just has a look. They stick to it. They can give him a different color fucking cloak, I guess. I don't know.
No, but like just his face is the thing. Because I feel like, well, we barely see him in the old movies, but he looked reasonably normal. But like the end of Revenge of the Sith, he's just like, he looks like he's been stung by a bee.
Well, he has.
He was.
Force lightning bee.
Fucking hell.
The ultimate bee. Ultimate bee force lightning. Han's face when he finds out Luke is the brother and he thinks back to Hoth. I always find that funny. That's just like a meme in itself. When Leia's like, he's my brother, and then Han just does it's audio podcast, but it's hard to do. But you can see he's like brain ticking over, like, like, and it doesn't get boring to watch. Like every single, I swear we could do this show every single year, and I'd write down the exact same note, which is Han's face. And then the last thing I wrote down is watching the final moments of Jedi. It just makes me wonder how Rise of Skywalker. Oh my god, my brain. Wonder how Rise of Skywalker will end now even more. For so long, it was like this is the end, the stop of everything. And then we've known that Episode 9 was coming for some time, but it's like, even though we watched this, of course, I watched this before Force Awakens came out. I watched this movie before Last Jedi came out. But I think it's just rewatching it this time, knowing that I'm about to go watch in a month's time
a new end.
A new end. That I'm paying more attention to the actual end of this movie than I have the last few rewatches I've done for it. Because I'm like, this movie just ends, and it's like everything's happy-go-lucky and fireworks and, you know, like they're together, like, yay, Force Ghosts over here, you know, like it just has a very cheery end.
Man.
Revenge of the Sith, which was the last time everyone thought there was going to be the end to a trilogy for a Star Wars movie. The end of that movie is very somber, you know, obviously, where it's like, it doesn't have a happy, cheery ending because it's not a happy, cheery movie. So now I'm like, okay, so how does this one end? Are they going to do some like, hip hip hooray? I don't think they're going to do that. But no, don't. All right, go ahead. You tell me what
it's going to end with Force Ghost, Yoda, Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker, Snoke, and Palpatine all holding hands. As Rey and Ben get married. Yep. And yeah, called it.
Called it.
Well, I've always had a theory, and I think the ending of this movie feels really good. It's full of hope, and there's so much left for the world onwards. Like, it doesn't feel like that is the end of the world as we know it. Like some stories that you tell where the end happens, and you're like, cool, that is all that happens in that world. Nothing. I don't get the feeling that any life continues on in that universe. But this one, you know, you get the feeling you're like, okay, Luke's going to go and start a new leaf and start the Jedi again and start rebuilding. But then this whole movie brings me back to the whole notion of balance in the Force, where I think this last movie is leading to, because I think the prequel trilogy ends with the darkest possible point, with the dark side of the Force being overpowered and unbalanced in a way. Like, it's so much greater than the light side of the Force. You come to the end of this movie, and just in the same way, the light side of the Force is overpowered to what was dark now. It comes off as the light side of the Force is so much stronger. It might not be. There's still a lot of Empire, but they've got rid of like the major parts of that dark side of the Force now.
I mean, there's one Jedi to 0 Sith, so you could either view that as infinitely more powerful.
The outlook on human, but I'm not talking about the Force as in just about Sith and just about Sith and Jedi. I'm talking about the Force as in like the balance of life as they know it. So there's so much hope now in the universe. There's so much, everything is now overbalanced in the way of the good, where it's like, okay, so of course it was going to come back around to being bad. Of course there was going to be something bad come back. I feel like the end of this 9th movie is something where the world just seems to be in balance, where it's not a perfect finish one way or the other.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't think the movie should be like, and we have a Sith and a Jedi and everything's good now.
No,
They can
not a
fend
Sith
turn.
and a Jedi, but like not everything being perfect and everything being like, you know, this movie finishes off like everything's perfect and everything's so great.
yeah,
in the
yeah.
world.
Everybody dies.
But but the thing, like, to touch on the perfect ending thing quickly is the thing that I always love that they've done with the extended universe material, like the Disney books did straight away as soon as they got the license with like the Aftermath trilogy and stuff, is they did something that makes so much sense. And you're going to see this in the Mandalorian series where it's like, realistically, the end of this movie doesn't make any sense. Like they take down the Death Star, they kill the Emperor, they kill Darth Vader, but it's like, okay, but you've got all of these like politician types and whatever else, like still sanctioned in so many different parts of the galaxy. Like, are they just hanging up their capes because the Emperor's dead? You know what I mean? Like, I like how they kind of cover that in the books and stuff, because that they wouldn't all just step down just because the Emperor died all of a sudden. And then with how the new one will end, I think the big difference there is just going to come down to Rey, because the problem with Luke, as The Last Jedi shows us, is that Luke he never has time. Like he aspires. He's like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Ben Kenobi. That's who he aspires to be. He meets Yoda. He's like this Jedi Master, like all these people. So then what's he going to do?
There's
What
two
does
people
he do
he
after
knew
this?
for less than a day.
Basically. But then it's like following this, what's he do? He goes off and he literally starts to try and make the Jedi Order again and literally just start the whole process again. But then, as we know from watching the prequels, the Jedi did 1,000,001 things fucking wrong. And like a 1,000,001 mistakes. Yoda himself made 1,000,001 mistakes, and Luke literally tries to restart that again for some reason. It's because he doesn't know better. And I think the thing with Rey is that Rey's, by the time we reach the end of her movie and her trilogy, it's like she's going to come out the other end not being like Luke. She's not going to be like, okay, I will literally just try and restart the Jedi Order because that's what I feel like I'm kind of obligated to do. She's going to have to do something different, and I feel like that's what breaks the ever-looping circle.
Break the cycle. Like,
Yes.
break the cycle. And that's that you know what, that sums up what I want for the next movie better than how I articulated it, in a way that she's not just following the same rotation of 1 minute the Jedi are powerful, the next minute the Sith are the powerful. Like, it seems to just go back and forth throughout the history of Star Wars, whereas we're getting to that point where somebody's going to break that cycle and is going to start something anew that fixes everything.
I feel like you can end the movie and she's like, I'm a Jedi and I'm going to go about like continuing the something of the Jedi ways. But at the same time, she's like, but I'm literally not trying to mimic their shit. You know, it's like I'm carrying the Jedi moniker and kind of like 1% of the Jedi ways, but I'm ditching like all of their shitty rules and, you know, all these things and like starting again. Whereas Luke was like, I'm going to keep all the rules, including I'll never have children and everything. Like, it was very much, I buy into this religion. Hello, door knocker. Yeah, sign me up, you know, like off I go to be a Mere Jedi. That's what I need to do with my life. I feel like Rey has to be Rey has to be the one that breaks that. She's like, yeah, I'm Jedi. Version 2.
But
we're doing things different this time.
I'd like them to. I wouldn't be against her dropping the word Jedi.
Well, that's where the Skywalker rumor thing
Yeah.
comes from. I am the first of the Skywalkers. We will now be known as Skywalkers, and it's like a new moniker. I'm not against the new moniker either. I just think the only reason I think they wouldn't do that is just because Jedi's like so obviously
Yes,
synonymous and
ingrained into it.
known, and yeah, it's like
marketing wise.
marketing wise and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's just like becomes and then it's like you shouldn't be thinking about that, because it's like story wise, if they want to have a new moniker, they should have a new moniker and they should do that for the story. But then it's hard not to think about Star Wars because it's such a big property that you just know that someone would be like, hey, no, like that makes our job harder for like selling toys later, you know, like all these people writing Jedi as their religion in the Australian censuses, they're going to have to write Skywalker now? Come on, we can't do that. Get the hell out of here.
Sure that, yeah. The box isn't big enough.
That's true. That's the main reason why I should never change the thing, I guess.
Fucking hell, Ashley.
All right, so let's get down to it. Let's start with you, Ashley. Where
Get the disappointment out of the way quick.
would you like... You tell me where you want to put it, and I'll put it there, and then We'll see how we go.
Think I'm gonna put this one at number 5.
Number 5. So that would be moving Empire up, Rogue One up, and then this is going to sit directly above Solo for you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Very close.
Okay. Ciaran. I'll read everyone's full things in a moment, of course, everyone listening. Ciaran, where do you want to put this?
I think this was the hardest decision of the series so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it might just be the hardest decision because I think whatever I pick now is going to be my number 1 by the end.
Okay, interesting.
And I think, because I don't think Force Awakens
Do you think putting the next 2 movies are going to be easy to rank? You're just going to be like, slot them in here, slot them in there.
Yeah, I think they're going to be easier because I know neither of them are my favorite Star Wars movie.
Okay.
I love Last Jedi, but at the same time, I very knowingly acknowledge a lot of the problems with The Last Jedi. Like there are, Canto Blight is a thing I wish just didn't happen.
What if Rise of Skywalker's the best Star Wars movie?
It might be, but I won't know this time. Like I won't know that for another year.
No,
or 2.
you've
like,
called
that's as in like this is this will be the number 1. So I didn't make my decision until midway through us recording this because I've been going back and forth between the 2 the entire time. But I'm gonna put this at number 3. I'm gonna put Return number 3, just because I don't think I do have problems with it. And I love Rogue One with a passion, but I think for what we used to have for the original Star Wars trilogy, this was such a great ending to the trilogy. Like this was like George Lucas with this movie actually did something right in many ways. Like he could have very easily fucked up this ending, and there have been so many trilogies where the
Some
endings
would
are
argue
a
he
bit
did.
Some would argue that he did
With
but I
one
think-
special effects shot.
Well, yeah. But no, I think this is a very good ending. So even if we never got the sequel trilogy and this was the official end of Star Wars, I would be very happy with it. So yeah.
I find it interesting you put it at your current top spot after saying you didn't sound so hot on it at the start.
I didn't sound so hot in it, and
You swayed him, Dylan. Swayed him with your...
It's my job.
it wasn't. It was like I do think that the start of this movie does drag. Like I still have my problems with it, but I think as an overall package and an overall movie and to what it is as the Star Wars for Star Wars, I think that puts it above Rogue One. If I was going to rank this on what is the better movie, I'd put Rogue One there.
No, we're not doing those lists. Those lists,
It's
they're
your personal
completely
preference.
different lists. Yeah, it's if people don't understand the difference between like just rank what your the definition of favorite doesn't mean you think that something is particularly like a 10 out of 10 best made thing. It just means that you like watching it. Like this sort of thing. I'm putting this at number 3 for myself as well. That's what I'm saying. I didn't want to give it away too early, but it was hard not to.
It was very obvious that you were holding back.
I've always said that Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie. And I think that just comes back to when I watched it when I was a lot younger. And like this was the one that like clicked for me the most. Like obviously it has like the most lightsaber stuff in it, the most like forcey mystical stuff. You got the Emperor, you've got fucking all this, like crazy stuff happening. For whatever reason, it was like always the one that clicked with me the most. And it's the one where you finally see Luke being badass, I guess,
Do stuff.
So yeah, do stuff. So I guess as a kid, it's like it was the most impressive one to watch. I think Empire as a kid is like probably the most boring because it's like
It's monotonous. It doesn't have much flashy shit going on.
Yeah.
In it. It's very world buildy and kind of like tensely paced, so that comes off as a bit slow.
yeah.
I get that.
So the official rankings as of this episode are Ciaran, Attack of the Clones, The Phantom Menace, Solo, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Empire Strikes Back, Rogue One, Return of the Jedi. Ash, Attack of the Clones, The Phantom Menace, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith, Solo, Jedi, Rogue One, Empire. Myself, Attack of the Clones, Solo, The Phantom Menace, New Hope, Empire, Revenge of the Sith, Rogue One, and then Jedi. So I feel like this I was asking before though, the thing, because going into the next 2 weeks, I'm like, I have a rough idea, but as I said, I've never officially ranked Star Wars movies until we've done this podcast, and I pretty much never fully decide on where I'm putting something until like I'm about to sit down and do this, or like as we're doing the show, and then I commit to it because I can never like stick something. But that's like part of the fun of doing the shows. It's making me just kind of have to commit to rankings of certain things, which I never really liked to do before. So that's where we're at now. But yeah, I'm not like looking at it. I'm like, oh, Force Awakens there, Last Jedi there. Like, it's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting. And as much as you may want to, like, so when we get to Last Jedi and we put that down, I'll be like, I'll feel very comfortable with how that looks, I think. But we are going to put Rise of Skywalker here somewhere. And I think all of us can put like a little asterisk on it and say that like, wherever this is probably going to change place. Like if you ask me,
it's a
like,
tempered thing. It's like we haven't ruminated on it. We haven't dwelled on it. Like even for me, 12 months ago, Jedi would be at the top of my list. Like 12 months ago, Jedi just wouldn't be there. But I think so much for me has changed in my understanding of Star Wars and my appreciation for Star Wars that it makes Jedi better.
Well, yeah, a lot of my list and the positions of stuff, it has always changed thanks to extended universe stuff, be that the TV shows or the books, the comics, or what have you. Like the reason Revenge of the Sith is so high on my list is because of the Clone Wars, and I said that in that thing. That's the thing. Like I know people shit on all the prequels and they think that all of the movies are bad, and I'm like, whatever, I don't care. The reason Revenge of the Sith is so high to me is because, as I said when we talked about it, I watched that movie kind of like it's the season finale of like 7-8 seasons, or however you want to place it. It would be like the 8th season, I guess, technically, of this TV show. You know what I mean? Like that's how I watch it now. So it's like, what do I think? We're not ranking this on what we actually think is the best movie. All right. So that'll be it for this week's episode of Alderaan Explosion. Next week we'll be discussing The Force Awakens. It's kind of scary and exciting that that's what we're watching next week, because it means we're into the new stuff.
Close.
Yeah, it's like, oh my goodness gracious me. There is an episode in between Force and Last Jedi. There is like a break there, but even then, hopefully, even then, there's still the fact that the next movie I'm watching, next Star Wars movie I'm watching is The Force Awakens. I'm like, holy shit, we're getting so close. Don't forget, please watch this, share the show around on social media if you'd like, tag Explosion Pod, and tell us if you're enjoying it. You can rate it on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. Ordering Explosion is a Darth production of ExplosionNetwork.com, which is where you can also find What Do You Want to Watch, a fortnightly movie and TV podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Vivaladil, Vivaladil. You can follow Ash on Twitter at Ashley Hobley, ASHLEY. Follow Ciaran on Twitter at Ya Boy Ringo. And may the Force be with you. Always.